Think about this in the Big 12 when you have, and it depends on who you look to, with the various bracketologies, with the various seedings, with the various mock this and that when it comes to the tournament. But right now they have 2 number 1 seeds in Baylor and Kansas and a number 3 seed in Tech, who's 3-1 against the number 1 seeds. But again, it's also the overall, your entire picture. And I get it, by the way, if you're a Texas Tech fan at times being a little bit frustrated because you're at the number 3. But again, number 3 seed with who else is in front of you or right behind you, it's Jay Bilas said this. It's pretty wide open. It's not a collision course, perhaps like we saw last year with Gonzaga and Baylor. CJ Moore, theathletic.com, has covered and done some incredible stories over the years about Baylor, and had one about Jeremy Sohan. And he joins us on Sic'Em 365 Radio and 365 Sports. CJ, you've seen what they've done, what they've been through, the constant injuries that have been bumps, bruises, and devastation at times, to win the game against Kansas, turn around and win a slugfest with Texas. Your thoughts about Baylor right now?
Yeah, I think it's the best Baylor's looked since probably December, right? They've now won 4 straight, but these last 2 games, to do that, that's about as good as 2-game stretch as anybody's had in a long time in college basketball. I thought it was big time. I mean, Kansas was coming in playing at a really, really, really high level. Since KU lost to Texas, since KU lost to Kentucky, the Jayhawks have been playing at really well, and I thought they played pretty well and executed pretty well the other night. And so on a night when I thought Kansas was pretty good, for Baylor to win that game and then to come back in, I was there last night in Austin, great atmosphere. Texas was charged. I mean, how many times do you go into a building like that and able to win? Like, not very often under those circumstances. And so for Baylor to pull that off with just 7 guys basically, and that 7th guy, a Division II player a year ago, like it's pretty unreal what the Bears are pulling off right now.
CJ, based on that, 7 guys, they don't have a lot of depth when it comes to size. It's pretty much just Flo Thamba. Even if they do, they win this week, they're probably against Iowa State, they're probably going to be a number 1 seed regardless of what happens in Kansas City in the Big 12 tournament. Is this a team that you still think can get to a Final Four based on those issues of depth?
If they stay healthy, they can't afford to lose anybody else. I think if they lost anybody else, like that might be it for them. That'd be really, really, really difficult to deal with. So if they stay healthy, but yeah, I think Adam and James are huge keys, and I think they're getting back, as you saw last night, to be able to play at the level that they, you were expecting of them the first couple months of the season, right? And even Adam, even was a little slow out of the gates, but got hot eventually. And when they play like that, those are 2 really, really good guards. And then I think they're a team that can kind of win different kind of matchups, and you saw that these last 3 days, because the Kansas game, what did it require? Well, they were going to pick on David McCormick, and Jeremy Sohan was the guy they could pick on him with. And so him and Flo really were huge parts of that game plan. And then last night, it was, Jeremy didn't have maybe the advantageous matchups against Texas, but they thought they had something on the perimeter with Adam and Flag, and those guys were able to go at them. So it kind of shows they can win different games, win different styles, win at different paces. Texas plays really slow, Kansas plays really fast. So I think that was a very telling 3 days that shows Baylor's capable of winning games in a lot of different ways.
CJ, obviously a disappointing loss for Texas, as you said, to close out their building, losing to a rival like that. But where do you see them now as that shakes out from last night?
I think Texas is okay. I don't think that it's a special team by any means. I do think the Longhorns have gotten better this year, and they're playing better, and they're kind of figured out who they are. They got to play through Timmy Allen a lot, isolate him on the elbows a lot. He's really good at that. Marcus Carr has been a little bit of a disappointment. But Andrew Jones has been starting to play better. Courtney Ramey's a rock. Christian Bishop's kind of figured out his role, and probably helps him that Trey Mitchell is, I guess, gone and nowhere to be found. Yeah. So They've got a nice team. Like they've got a team that I think could get to the second weekend of the tournament. But I also wouldn't be shocked if they lose pretty early in the tourney. So we'll see what happens to them. But I do think they've gotten better, and I'm not shocked that they lost last night when Baylor's playing well.
CJ, when you did the article on, in fact, introducing Jeremy Sohan, the Baylor Bears, as a Final Four threat with a different look, he is much more mature than his age of 18. Kendall Brown is as well, and he's also complimentary. It's not a one-and-done or possibly a one-and-done player that want to fire away and score 20 a game. They understand who Baylor is. But for him to do that with 22 NBA scouts in the building, you were there obviously among others. How dynamic was he, and how good can he be?
I think he can be really good. I mean, I think he's the most talented guy on the roster. If I were an NBA general manager, he'd be the guy I'm most excited about on Baylor. The power and the ball handling and power, and like the way he can move from the perimeter, getting into the paint. I hadn't seen that. It reminded me, and this guy was kind of a flop in the NBA, although like he was a good offensive player in the NBA, but didn't live up to the expectations. But it reminded me of watching Jabari Parker at Duke. Like the floor shook when he would drive to the basket. And that's what it was kind of like watching Jeremy on Saturday. And then Jabari was just a scorer, but I think Jeremy has a really great feel. He's a really good passer. He can kind of play like a point forward role, as you saw. He was bringing up the ball as a 5-man against Kansas. So his game is really dynamic. He needs to get to become a better shooter. He's not a very good shooter right now, but you see the makings of a shot there. He made a big one against KU. And then defensively, he's switchable and does a lot. I thought, even though he didn't do much offensively last night, I thought he had some moments defensively where he made some really, really big plays. Some that showed up on the box score, I think he had a block late, but some that you just see like his knowing where to be and his length gives people problems. So I think he's a really, really, really talented guy and somebody I'm excited to watch see how he develops.
CJ, on a national level, I'm curious on your opinions on Gonzaga and where this team matches up to maybe last year's team, and if they've lost 3 games this year, which obviously makes them a lot different, and Duke, who also they're good, but they're in the ACC and they haven't played anybody, and Gonzaga and Duke maybe have the same problem as they head into the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, that hasn't really hurt Gonzaga in years past.
Yeah.
They've played in 2 of the last 4 national title games. I don't think that Gonzaga is as good as they were a year ago, but there's also nobody as good as Baylor was last year. So, I think we're going into the tournament, and I'm not sure who the best team in the NCAA is. Like, I have a feel at this point, like a team I'm saying, all right, that's the team I'm going to pick to win the national title. If Kentucky were healthy, I think that maybe be Kentucky. But I don't know who that team is at this point, which is going to make it fun. Gonzaga is really good. Drew Timmy's awesome. I mean, you guys know all about him after playing him last year. Andrew Nembhard, in a year when point guard play isn't that strong, like he's a really, really solid, great point guard for Gonzaga. I wrote about him earlier this year. They're not as good on the wing as they were a year ago. Chet Holmgren's obviously kind of a different kind of piece and a very, very unique player, and that could help him. But he's also a guy you can maybe pick on in the right matchup. So it'll be interesting. I still think they're really, really good. I mean, they hadn't lost in a long time, and St. Mary's I think had a good game plan and got them on Saturday night. But I wouldn't be like super worried about Gonzaga.
And I guess that wide open field, CJ. I mean, this weekend is a prime example of that, huh?
Yeah. The 6 top ranked teams going down for sure. And I'm excited about the tournament. I think it could be a wild one.
Yeah, I do too. And you're right about the collision course with, I mentioned Gonzaga, Baylor, and then how dominant Baylor was. When you look at Baylor and Kansas, and they might meet again, who knows what happens in Kansas City. Baylor can probably wrap up that number 1 seed if they can take care of business Saturday against Iowa State. But you look at what Bill Self did to Baylor that first game when he kind of dialed some things up. And then to watch Scott Drew turn around, and he then counter that with like a chess match, and they might meet again. Who knows? How much fun is that watching coaches? You have a Hall of Famer himself and one who will be in Scott Drew, if not already, but will eventually be in the Hall, to watch those guys go back and forth at each other.
Yeah, it's really fun. It's what makes this league so fun to watch. And, there's a lot of really good coaches in the league, and every game's a chess match. But I think we talk about Scott a lot differently than people used to, right? Like, I think hopefully he's finally getting that respect. He deserves it. They coached a really, really good game Saturday, and were able to kind of figure out some things to pick on Kansas with. And, as I wrote about in my story, kind of reminded me of 2 years ago when Baylor won the first meeting and Self had something different for him in the second one that gave them lots of problems. So it's always a great matchup when those two come together. I think there's a respect level on both ends. I think Self his respect has grown for Scott, I think, in these last few years. And it's always fun when those teams get together, and I hope they do again in Kansas City. It'd be fun to see them play for the Big 12 tournament championship, because we got kind of robbed of that a couple of years ago, right? Yep. Everybody would have loved to see those teams play again. CJ, heck, maybe two more times 2 years ago.
Yeah, no question, because Kansas probably was slightly ahead of them, and Gonzaga was good, Baylor was good, whatever else, but then we got to see it play itself out. You were there on Saturday. You watched the game with Kansas. You wrote about Jeremy Sohan. You were there on Monday in Austin last night. You got to discuss the game as well. Is there something coming out from that game as well? Do you have anything else you're going to write this week?
Oh yeah. I was behind the scenes with the Bears the last couple of days. So I am I'm on the last section right now. So I'm hoping to get it out for tomorrow.
Text me when you do. I know you got plenty of other things to do, including editors who are more important, but I want to make sure I get it out there to let everyone know it's coming or it's out, okay?
I will do. I appreciate
CJ Moore.
Thanks for spreading the word.
Aren't you the one who did the story, and it was about somebody else, but you're the one that mentioned that it was like 6 o'clock in the morning, then Jonathan Chamwachachua was out behind the condo complex or apartment complex?
Yeah. That was my
you.
profile on him.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was my profile on him.
It was fantastic. Yeah. Great stuff, CJ. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Take care.
He's a hell of a writer, theathletic.com, and CJ Moore. He's the one that wrote the story about Jonathan Chamwachachua, how it might have been Jared Butler, might have been Davion Mitchell, might have been Maceo Teague, might have been Mark Vidal. He's hearing this dribbling behind the whatever it was, and it was like 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning, and there was Jonathan out on the hard court, just kind of practicing, going through different motions, and that still sucks that he's not a part of it, but Baylor's had to turn themselves into who they are, and now using Sohan and all the others in different ways. You know what I'm proud of? I got to say this. I'm proud of, and I'm not proud of this as a fan. I'm talking about as somebody who watches somebody in Matthew Meyer. He has become what used to be thought of as perhaps even a selfish player. And as Jerome Tang will mention, those guys don't come to Baylor because they don't have an ego. They're all good. They all know they're elite, right? And for him to have what we've seen him do, he was critical very much last year in their national championship run. He goes down to his hometown. Frank Irwin Center's being closed down. He didn't have to score a lot of points. He scored like 2.23 points, but he did the other things. And he's now realized, damn, I could probably come up with 8 to 10, 12 rebounds a game. He's not big and thick, but he's so wiry. He's stronger than you think.
He's faster than people give him credit for, too.
And at times, he and Akinjo, we've said this before, they're both the ones who will make you toast a drink and then also want to take, like, blood pressure medicine. Yeah, but they're both necessary.
Yeah, they offensively, they have two temperatures, red hot and ice cold. That's what they have. I mean, that's it. There's no, like, you can turn the water on. You're going to have to stop doing that. It's driving me crazy. Okay.
We have been doing this show in the studio, and I have not done anything differently than what I did before. So, I'm knocking you off as far as your head. Finish your thought.
Yeah, but there's no warm water in that shower. You're either going to scald yourself or you're going to freeze. But they are definitely, when it comes to everything else, they do it. They do it all. I mean, they do what they need to be done. And Matthew Meyer, I didn't know if he was ever going to be that guy, but he has grown into it, and he seems to kind of enjoy being a rebounder.
All right, I got my leg off of it now.
Well, no, it's still in one ear because I'll bend and try to fix it.
All right, when we come back, a couple of other notes in sports. We'll look at a couple of other rankings when it comes to college basketball. Craig's off the radar an hour from now. Got a letter from area code 2, a text from 281, a Texas Tech fan in Lubbock, but someone who looks and watches what Baylor's doing in basketball because of fan there as well. Sic'Em 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Marcos Pizza.